Hello, everybody. Ketchy1383 with Ketchy Gaming. So I am doing my, I guess it's sort of a version versus version type videos I do when they release a older version of a game on the Switch. I'm doing it today because the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced yesterday, and there's no shortage of people trying to stretch 2 minutes and 26 seconds out longer than it has to be or should be, especially just for a video that showed the physical appearance of the Switch. I should say Switch 2, but whatever. One of the things I'm doing in this video is due to a YouTuber when the price was announced for Donkey Kong Returns HD. People were a bit upset at the price, a full $60 for basically just a remake of an older game. Personally, I never played the Wii version, but someone, I can't remember the YouTuber's name, was suggesting that they just go buy the Wii version and or the DS version. So I decided to compare the two. I found the Wii version for dirt cheap on eBay. It was actually complete in case or box, whatever you want to say. So that was nice. It was like less than $20 with shipping and the purchase of the game itself. I did not get the 3DS version, mainly because capturing the footage would require me to emulate it. There are some options I could do through Snicker Stream, but it just causes the frame rate to drop and the video to look like garbage, so I don't do that. And the days of modding 3DSs are long since over, and anyone who's in the game is gone for the most part. I mean, yes, I found a couple of kits out there, but I don't trust myself to do that. And I honestly don't want to because my two 3DSs are collector's editions of Legend of Zelda 3DSs. So yeah, I'm not about to risk screwing that up. Let's start with the Wii version, and honestly, it's actually not that bad looking for a game as old as it is. And on the hardware that it's on, I'll give it that. But some red flags came right off the bat because everyone who's ever played with the Wii, don't take this the wrong way. I loved my Wii. That sounds so wrong that they really should have named it something different. But the controls were, the whole gimmicky thing of using the motion controls just did not work for certain game types. This is definitely one of them. Having to hold that narrow controller sideways and using the 1 and 2 buttons, as well as combining the motion controls to put input into the game. And honestly, it was just kind of awkward. And this is my main contention of the actual Donkey Kong games because of how awkward it was to use the D-pad, holding the controller sideways, which it is not well designed in terms of actually, holding it sideways like an NES controller. Like, I guess that's what they're going for. And I know it's a bit of a cliche for an older gamer to complain about motion controls. I mean, yes, there's actually viable uses for them. I've seen people use them to do precision aiming. I fidget a lot when I play, and I usually have at least one of two cats sitting with me. And it may seem like a weird problem to have, but having to flip the controller up constantly is kind of disruptive to their overall experience, especially when you have a cat sitting on you who gets very irritated that you constantly move. I mean, I could just tell her to move, but she might kill me in my sleep, so that's not an option. But the one big issue that I kind of had with the whole entire Wii remote control is there's this one particular mechanic that I knew was in the game that they kept from the Super NES games, and it made it a return in, was it Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze? I shouldn't say new, but I suspected it's the rolling jump. And I had a really hard time getting it to execute with the Wii controller. So I was actually just trying to get that O in the Kong that you saw there. And in order to do that, you have to do the rolling jump. And it's kind of awkward with the Wiimote because you have to have enough movement for it to detect that you're actually trying to do the roll while simultaneously holding a button and having movement while trying to hold down buttons and push buttons at the same time is a bit awkward. So it took me multiple attempts to finally actually get it. And that's just like, let that sort of, I don't know, frame this whole entire thing, because this game is absolutely chocked full of using motion controls, and they're just kind of awkward to use at times. But I just found it annoying, the constant need to actually do physical motions to control the game. And the weird part is, I know they could have used a Pro Controller for this. And for whatever reason, Nintendo decided that they had to use the motion controllers. I should say Wiimotes, but whatever. And admittedly, it kind of detracted from the experience having to use the Wiimote constantly and having to shake it to cause input and all the other fun stuff. So moving on to the Switch version, or I should say the HD version, they added a mode where you have modern mode where they give you an extra heart and items that you can buy in the shop. And then they had the original mode, which I experienced on the Wii, so I tried the modern one. So right off the bat, it has an advantage. It uses buttons over shaking the Wiimote. So I went in blind, and I had no idea how the input was going to work, and I was actually quite happy to see that they had button input, but I wasn't sure if they're going to have an option for motion controls, which, yes, the Switch can do, but that's not even an option. It's entirely buttons, so if you do like your motion controls, sorry, they don't seem to be there. Then again, I didn't look at all the options, but I'm going to say they probably aren't. Now, in terms of appearance, it is actually noticeable that it looks quite a bit better on the Switch versus the Wii version. Don't get me wrong, the Wii version was still, pretty good looking for its age and the hardware, but this is vastly superior. Now, I already mentioned the buttons. Yeah, definitely a vast improvement over the Wii version, having to shake it. Now I can just hit X or Y to slam on the ground. There is one little tiny caveat to that. You have to be a little careful about what you're doing in terms of movement, because you can accidentally roll off a cliff if you don't come to a complete halt and hit the button. But I suppose you could do the same thing with the Wii. It just feels like it was a bit easier when you're doing it on the Switch version. But since I'm using a Pro Controller, it also fits in my hands far better than the Wiimote. Not nearly as awkward. On top of that, you also get to use an analog stick versus a D-pad. Again, quite a night and day difference. And that, I had troubles getting on the Wii version, nailed it first try with the Switch version. Honestly, though, in terms of that, playing on the Wii version and actually getting the timing down a little bit with the button press definitely helped. That probably would have taken me a couple of tries regardless if I didn't know the sort of timing for that. So not exactly a one-to-one comparison, but it was definitely much easier in terms of input versus having to shake the controller at the right moment. Now, in terms of overall gameplay, honestly, I'm actually enjoying myself on the Switch version, mainly due to having better controls. It has a bit of exploration aspect to it that you probably won't really expect from a Donkey Kong game, depending if you've played them before. There sort of was in the Super NES games where you had to collect the Kong and all the other fun stuff. And I guess the 64 version, which was a collectathon, but not in the same vein. There's no timer or anything like that, so you have all the time you need to explore these levels and find all the little hidden nooks and crannies they have around. So let's say you're looking for the puzzle pieces. They added Squawk the Parrot as an item you can buy from Cranky Kong's store, which will alert you, letting you know that there's a puzzle piece nearby and to pay attention to your surroundings. I mean, it's called Modern Mode, but yeah, it just kind of makes the game easier. I mean, I can appreciate it. I honestly don't have a problem with Squawk, and that third heart actually comes quite in handy. Now, in terms of difficulty, so far, it's not that bad. I've only played through one section of the game, getting through the jungle. I haven't started any others yet, but it's not nearly as hard as Tropical Freeze was. I mean, I beat that. I beat every single last area in the game, but that was hard. This seems easier so far. I think this had a reputation for being hard. I can't remember. So I guess the verdict is yes, of course, the Switch version's probably going to be better. I mean, I've done these before, like with Luigi's Mansion 2. When they put that onto the Switch, that was a much better way to play it. The same goes for this. Same for, what was it, Skyward Sword HD. That's in the same vein as this game right here. It's just a better way to play the game. You do have to pay a bit of a premium in order to play it in a better fashion. Yes, I do actually agree with some people that $60 for this is probably a little on the pricey side. Now, I don't know how much effort went into putting the game into an HD version along with programming controls and all that other fun stuff, but I can't imagine that you would need to crank it up to $60 to compensate for that. I could be wrong, though. But honestly, if you want an easier time playing this game, I would not go with the Wii version. Go with the Switch version. You'll have a much better time with it. And like I said, I can't speak to the 3DS version, but to be honest, I've seen some footage of that. The screen's a bit pixelated, and on top of that, it's a tiny little screen. So it's probably still going to be better on the Switch either way. So if you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. Have a good one.